All right, welcome back to Finger Lakes today. Josh Durso and Paul Russo here. Plus, we are joined in studio by Kyle Evans and Jim Sinicropi for sports. Paul, a busy night last night on high school hoops scene.
Yeah, loaded slate. Mainly focusing on the Finger Lakes East boys side of things. We'll start with Wayne. Went down to Newark, down to Rose City on Valentine's Day, but the Reds come out victorious, 60-53. Captured a solo crown for the Finger Lakes East. Cam Blankenberg had 19 for Wayne. Kellen Foster, 25, including 6 threes for the Newark Reds. How about that? One of the names that we don't normally talk about with Newark. All right, but one of the key kind of role guys, and big night for Kellen.
Yeah, it was nice to see somebody get points from somewhere else. They're going to need that going forward. But a couple things about that game. Wayne's head coach, Bill Thompson, was not there. COVID. I don't know if that would make a difference in a 7-point game. But Cam Blankenberg, freshman, the next big thing.
Oh, yeah.
He might be the best. I don't know, I'm not making bold predictions, Kyle. I usually leave that to you, but Cam Blankenberg may be the best player we've seen in the last 10 years by the time he's done. That's my bold prediction.
Whoa.
So I don't know how they're going to do in A2 sectionals this year. It'll be tough, but the future is bright for Wayne. Hope Coach Thompson's feeling okay. And a big win for Newark. They clinched the Finger Lakes East title.
Yeah. And, key part in this as well, right? A couple extra sectional points in the old bank there because obviously playing a school above them class-wise.
That's always a thing that hurts Wayne and sometimes Geneva and helps the rest of the league. It's an opportunity to get those. But it's kind of balanced out because Whitman's now in the East and they're a C team. So Whitman's the team that really gets a chance to get some sectional points all season long. But end of the day, usually stuff evens out. If you're good enough, you're good enough. You're going to get a home game or two, be a high seed. And I think Newark's going to enter as the 1 seed. Is that? We'll have to check that.
It'll probably be like 2 at the lowest.
They were last night before the game. I know that.
Yeah, I think Kearney was 1. Batavia was in contention. Pelmac was, I think, 4. So it's going to be a great B1 tournament. Kyle, watch your game last night in Palmyra. Was a bit of a snoozer. But good.
That's Nate over there producing. That is definitely Nate over there producing.
But Whitman set for Class C1 sectionals, and Pelmac I don't know about you guys, but Pelmac may have set some sort of statistical record this year for the best defensive team in the history of the Finger Lakes East. I don't remember many games where they gave up more than 40 points.
No, and it's weird because they kind of have ran. I mean, it was mainly like a 3-2, but the one game I remember going up and doing, I think it was, I want to say it was that Newark game that they had. And I mean, they came out started out in 3-2 half court, but then they went to this I wouldn't call like a 1-3-1 full court zone, but it was like a 2-2-1 full court zone, and it was just ravenous. Like they just go out there, it's defense first, and that leads to I think the offense that we've seen from them really this year. Turn and burn. I mentioned that game, right? 43-56. Palmac victorious over Marcus Whitman. Ian Goodness had 25 again. I mean, 23 in the first half, right, Nate?
Yep,
right?
23 in the first half. He was incredible offensively. We had him in the interview after the game, and I just asked him kind of how it feels when you get out there and just every shot's falling, and he just reiterated that he wants to be the one with the ball in his hands when he's feeling it like that, and it was pretty fun to watch. Ian Goodness just put on a show last night in Palmac, especially in that first half.
And
he didn't do as much shooting in the second half. He didn't really need to.
And loaded up on some Cicino's pizza gift certificates.
Yeah, we gave him 3.
Got all 3 of them from the season long.
He does like pineapple on his pizza, so that was interesting.
Which is
good.
I
think Paul will like to hear that.
Yes. Yeah. I'm happy that we're a few group, but that's a different discussion.
One other game in the Finger Lakes East last night that was fun to watch was Minders Penyan. It was a close game down to the stretch, and those are 2 teams that are in Class B2 that I think, looking at the sectional standings, they might play each other again in the first round. And I think last night was for home court. And so a big win for Minders, and
first league win.
Yeah, their first league win on the last night of the regular season. So they've obviously struggled, but they're going to be in a different class for sectionals. I still think they're a long shot, but they learned to win a game last night. Jaden Ryko with a big offensive rebound late and then knocked down 2 free throws. Nico Franzone with a big block in the corner, block shot when Penyan took a 3 to tie. He blocked it, got fouled, knocked down the game clinching free throw. So that's how you win games. We've seen Minders lose some close games to Whitman and some other schools this year, but they were able to pull it out, only their 4th win of the season, but a glimmer of hope now for the postseason. So who out of the Finger Lakes East, Kyle, will you make a bold prediction will be in a sectional final?
My pick right now is Newark. I think Newark's playing their best basketball. I think they can beat anyone, especially when all the guys are contributing, like last night. Kellen Foster, he's just a junior too. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that'll be.
Braden Steve, I think he had like 13, but he still played well. If he, has a big game, like they just have so many scoring threats that I think they're the team to beat, and they have size.
Yeah, I didn't even mention Rayshawn Howard.
Yep.
Probably the best player on the team. It's arguable, but I saw last night Braden Steve did a lot of things other than hang out by the 3-point line too, and I think that's helps them when he's a little more involved on the boards and inside the arc.
Yeah, he went to the rim, did like a reverse layup. He wasn't just camping out the 3-point line.
Yeah, I agree. Newark Palmac is going to be a lot of fun to watch. The one team I think that's on the outs is Geneva. We had kind of high hopes for them. They really struggled towards the end of the season.
Back-to-back nights, too. They got 3-point wins. Struggled.
Yeah. Yeah, one against Minders, who then got a 3-point win or a 4-point win against Penyan. So, yeah, it was a good night last night. I had 2 or 3 games up on my monitor, and I had the Syracuse NC State game up on my TV.
Yeah, we'll touch on Syracuse in a minute. Do want to make note, pretty interesting, Nate, in the interview with Ian Goodness mentioned a scrimmage this week against Lions.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Let's go cover it.
I want to be a fly on the wall for that one.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it'll be a closed gym.
Speaking of Lions, it was our side and the girls' side, but Lions come away victorious over North Rose Wolcott, secure the top seed in C2 for girls in sectionals with that win. So
didn't win the league, but got the top seed in sectionals. That's always nice too for the league.
Yep. And then tonight, the main focus is the girls' side of things, specifically the Finger Lakes East, Mid Lakes at Palmac, Waterloo at Geneva, coming down for either a shared Finger Lakes East title between Waterloo and Palmac, or maybe one of them gets it solo outright.
Yeah, it's very similar to last night in the boys' side. Waterloo's going to beat Geneva, obviously. That's 100% chance.
Yeah.
But Mid Lakes could beat Palmac, in which case Waterloo would be the outright champs. Palmac wins. They get a chance to share that title, which Waterloo's had a lock on the past few years, and honestly, heading into this year, thought they had a lock on it again. So that would be a huge notch in the cap for Dan Harris's group in Palmac.
Mm-hmm. All right, Jim, you mentioned it. Syracuse 75-72 win over NC State, 3rd straight win. Jesse Edwards double-double with 18 and 16. Also attempted his first ever 3-pointer and made it. Joe Girard had 14, Bell had 11, Brown 10. So big night for some key guys.
Not Benny Williams.
No, but certainly end up being, as I called it, it's just like this team. Like where was some of this the rest of the year? But
I don't know. I think last night's game was like a lot of games this year where they're in it, and then with about 2 minutes left in the game, when they're either up a couple or down a couple, they just fold. And I felt like that was going to happen last night too as I was watching it. They were up 4 or 5 points about the 2.5 minute mark, and gave it back and ended up pulling it out.
What do you think? What do you think, in your opinion, Kevin Keats and Boeheim were talking about there at the end?
I don't know. What do you think, Kyle?
I don't know. I mean, weren't they smiling a little bit, kind of laughing at each
It
other?
started out.
Yeah, I couldn't tell what Keats was exactly looking like, but
It started out. I thought that it was like a serious thing, and then Boeheim was laughing, and then they started patting each other on the chest. So I don't think, I don't think there was anything kind of to worry about there.
Yeah, they didn't need to be held back or anything.
No, and then like I said, they were both smiling and patting each other. But I don't know. I personally think that it had something to do with the calls, maybe. NC, the NC State center that fouled out on that charge call, which in my opinion was a good call. But that certainly kind of locked it in for Syracuse. I thought that, that if he doesn't follow out, maybe that's another one we drop in the vein of North Carolina, Virginia, or Pitt.
Hope increasing? Do the Syracuse fans here have maybe a small glimmer of hope? Glimmer? Just a little bit? What's your percentage at? If you're putting it at a percentage, what's your percentage at?
Well, I would look at first, with the schedule ahead of us, do we have a opportunity if we won them all? I mean, obviously win the ACC tournament you're in, but let's say, win the remaining regular season games and then win 2 games in the ACC tournament. Would that be enough? Geez, I think it would put us on the bubble, but can we do that? That's hard to think that we could win out based on what I've seen this year. So I'd put the percentage at about 10 to 15%.
Yeah, there's bound to be what I enjoy calling, I think what a lot of us Syracuse fans enjoy calling the typical Syracuse loss, kind of somewhere laying in the weeds.
Get down by 15, 20 in the first 5 minutes, then struggle back and almost win, but then lose.
Yeah, so home Saturday against Pitt, 6 p.m. tip.
That's the big one.
And that's on ESPN for those who aren't going to be
Pitt.
there.
Duke.
Yep, Duke.
So I said
Duke is first? You said Pitt.
I said Pitt.
Oh, I inadvertently said Pitt. I apologize.
I mean, it's funny. Duke would be the game that we should win. Pitt's the game that I think would be harder to win, that we need to win. Need to win them all, obviously.
Well, yeah.
But if I had to pick one of the two, I would think the Duke will be the easier win.
Does one more loss just end it completely?
Yeah.
End it fully?
Absolutely. Unless they win the
No more
ACC
debate?
tournament. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they got 10 losses now, right? What are they, 16-10 now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're in the middle of a very down ACC this year.
Yeah, it's like
So-
Syracuse hasn't beaten a ranked team in 2 years until last night, but they don't get many opportunities to in that crap league.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Tough.
You mentioned you're watching some Big East games last night, right? Now there's a league.
Love the Big East.
Yeah, I do
St.
too.
John's and DePaul last night, double overtime.
Syracuse built that league. Now we're in a Southern Conference.
Yeah, I've been in a big East kick lately. Requiem for a Big East was on the other night, and it's just, kind of all snowballs. Providence was in another good game last night,
Shake it up.
I miss the Big East at the end of the day.
More than
Big
you
East.
could know.
Yeah.
More than you could know. Sad.
All right, locally here, a bit of a name that we've been used to on the, I say at least for us growing up.
I hate this story so much.
Frontier Field no more officially as of yesterday. Innovative Field signage was up.
So it's official. The signage is up. We're being, I don't even want to call it like taunted. We're being told that there's going to be improvements now because of this change. So the former Frontier Field, Innovative Field, will hopefully be getting some upgrades in the next year thanks to this new multi-year agreement. For me, my biggest gripe with this, I just wish they called it Innovation Field. I know the company is called Innovative.
Yeah.
Just call it Innovation Field. Innovative Field, it just doesn't flow. It just doesn't flow.
Give it a few years. It'll roll off the tongue. JMA Wireless Dome.
I was going to say,
it's another really good example.
speaking
JMA Darlers Dome kind of works. I kind of like it.
I like Carrier, but whatever.
I mean, in the same vein, though, you mentioned that Frontier Field. I know a lot of people were still calling it Silver Stadium, even though Silver Stadium was blocks away from where Frontier Field, now Innovative Field is. I mean,
what are did they give any insight into what the improvements are going to be?
They're going to be tech driven.
So
they're going to be tech driven. They're going to make it feel
a lot of it actually stems from the recent collective bargaining between the MLB and the Players Union. Not a lot. Let me rephrase. There are certain things going on right now, mainly underneath the concourse for the clubhouses, bigger batting cages, better amenities for the players and staffs, better health and training stuff for the teams. So that portion of it's going to be done this year. I think there's a lot of stuff. I think on the concourse wise, it's going to be in the next couple years that we'll see kind of drawn out. That's not so much Major League Baseball and Minor League Baseball driving that. That's more the team kind of driving that. But a lot of the stuff is really driven from this most recent player agreement and bargaining agreement between the union and the league up top.
It's where they're testing all their new rules, so they might as well be putting a little bit more money into it.
I mean, look, what is now Innovative Field? I mean, it's to me one of the better ballparks anyway in AAA baseball. at least the International League here on the East Coast. So, but that being said, I think it's also more like one of the older ones technically now. It's kind of wild to think
built
about.
Built between
97
97 and 98.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, but still, when we think about places to go watch a professional game in Rochester, Frontier Innovative Field is the winner far and away. The Blue Cross
Love
is
it.
absolutely abysmal to, we've been to what, a half dozen Amerks games now this season. And I'm sorry, but the Blue Cross needs so many improvements. It's like, it's almost
bad.
uncomfortable. It's
Just
It
like
is
the
bad.
KeyBank Center in Buffalo. They got to make improvements there too.
Yes.
So they got a lot of work to do.
I think
And-
that's a little bit of being in the box though as well. You're stuck in the confine. I think,
Same owner.
yeah, that's true. The Pagulas, right?
Yep, they
So-
own all the teams, so they got a lot of work to do. Then they're trying to get this new stadium still together for the Bills. So I don't know. I think it's going to take a while before they make any improvements.
The Bills Stadium is their number one priority, I
Yep.
think, right?
So that's why I don't think
they're
they'll pay
thinking-
attention to the
Yeah.
renovations for a while.
The terrible thing is, and I've made this comment every time we've gone up there, is like the upgrades that are needed in the Blue Cross, and I don't know about out in Buffalo for the Sabres, but they're relatively minor. Like
Yeah.
it's not that it's a bad environment for anything other than just the experience of people sitting in the stands. It's bad. It's really bad. That's just, I understand there's probably capacity. They're probably trying to make sure
Right.
they're at a certain number for capacity, but
And-
you've got to find a way to spread the seats out better so
And
that
I
it
can't
is
speak
more
to
comfortable.
and I can't speak to Buffalo's end, but I do know. I mean, the county does have Monroe County does have a little bit of play with Blue Cross Arena, right? Because it is the War Memorial, so
Yep.
I think it's a lot like what Syracuse has to deal with what's now the On Center. I
Listen,
believe, and-
If the billionaire Pagulas
no, I
said,
don't disagree.
hey,
I don't.
we want to
disagree,
throw a bunch of money into this arena that you're hosting events in year round, no one from Monroe County is going to say, I don't know about that.
I don't disagree.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. Like I said, I don't think the Pagulas are too interested in the Blue Cross Arena right now. But I also was kind of frustrated that the Bills would need to build a new stadium. I mean, everybody wants new stadiums, but I don't know. Stadium seems fine to me.
Bills fans seem to be pretty pleased with it. Attendance doesn't look too bad.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a different feel, though. This is a classic, older stadium that's kind of outdated. And I think the newer one, it's going to be nice. But Bills fans are used to going to this stadium and, where it was. It's going to be different. Yeah, it's going to be a little different.
All right. Time to shift gears into the topic that I've wanted to talk about since Sunday.
Yeah.
Is there now an argument to be made for Andy Reid being called the best coach in NFL history over Bill Belichick?
No way. No way.
All right, let's hear it. Why?
Yeah.
Why? Give us the reasons. Because I've got
number of Super Bowls, number one.
okay.
Yeah, it's 6-2.
Yeah. So
But other than that, I don't
8
know.
actually, isn't it? Belichick have 2 more. He's got a couple with the Giants too. I guess he was on the staff for.
well,
we're
as a
talking
head
head
coach.
coach.
Head coach.
That's the number one reason. But if you can think of guys off the top of your head that are automatically ahead of him, Belichick's obviously one. Chuck Knowles another. Lombardi,
Don Shula.
undefeated team. You could maybe make an argument with Shula, but who else? Who else would you think would Parcells probably? But so I think he falls somewhere at the bottom of the top 10, but he could win another one or two or three in the next 5 years, and that would change the conversation.
So this is where I'm going to jump in. Paul, you can either chase me or you can swear me off. It doesn't matter.
No. I think me and you are going to be
3 losing
Yeah.
seasons since becoming a head coach
Yeah.
in 99. 14 seasons with 11 or more wins. He's led the Eagles to the playoffs 9 times with 5 NFC championship appearances, 1 Super Bowl appearance. Led the Chiefs to the last 5 AFC championship games. Had home field in all of them. 2 Super Bowls. He's 64 years old. I understand that everybody loves to make the cheeseburger joke about him, but I wouldn't
Waddle
expect
on
him.
over here.
I wouldn't expect him to
Bradshaw.
drop dead at any time in the next 2 or 3 years. He's at least going to be coaching for another 5 years, and at 64 years old with Patrick Mahomes, I think that there's at least, if we don't want to say best ever, I want to at least hear people admit that unless Bill Belichick does something remarkable in the next 2 to 4 seasons, that he's better than Bill Belichick. Because I don't really see how there's an argument otherwise. The only argument you can make is that he won more Super Bowls, which is fine, but he also had the greatest quarterback to ever
Well, how would you think Reid? How many Super Bowls you think Reid would have won without Mahomes? Or he couldn't win him when he had McNabb. Got there once. McNabb got sick.
I mean,
threw
Belichick
up on the field. Remember that?
Belichick hasn't even shown that he's able to get to a championship game, a conference championship game without Tom Brady.
Well, again, I don't even know if Reid has either McNabb or Mahomes.
I did some research last night. Something that I found interesting is if you look at their Belichick's and Reid's coaching records, their winning percentage is it's pretty close. It's almost identical. And I believe Belichick has coached for 4 more years. And Reid is the first NFL coach in history to win at least 10 playoff games with multiple teams. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was.
I think
also
the multiple
interesting,
teams thing is a big notch in his cap for sure. But,
and he was sent away from Philadelphia after having one bad season.
And by the
they
way,
could never win the big one.
bad season.
And by the way, was only unemployed for 5 weeks.
Yeah,
between stops. I mean, he's been head coach since 1999. He's been in there longer than Belichick has. Belichick came in a year later from the Patriots. So here's where I'm going to tag along, Josh. I'm with you. I am very much so on your side with this. Andy Reid, 5th all time on the wins list. Now Belichick is 3rd. I'm not going to sit here and deny that portion of it. But that being said, like you said, he's been under 500 3 times, right?
3 times. Yep.
Okay. And to me, perhaps more importantly, in a way, he has a very successful coaching tree behind him. I'm just going to rattle off a few names. John Harbaugh with the Ravens. Steve Spagnuolo. Ron Rivera. Doug Peterson.
But you could
Matt Nagy. And Sean McDermott.
You could make names. You could coaching tree names. Parcells' coaching tree would put that coaching tree to shame.
Would it though?
Yeah.
I mean, Belichick's really the only one.
No, there's others. I would have to pull out I can name off the top of my head, but there's certainly others. He's just a lot of them are gone by now.
But I think that is, and maybe it's not the best ever, but I think especially with the direction the NFL has gone, it's not going to go back to being a defense first NFL before Reid is done. So say he's got another 5 years. They're not going. That team isn't going anywhere.
It's right in front of him. He could become the undisputed great at whatever. Although it would be again tough to. He's not going to win 6
He's not.
Super
Yeah, he's not
Bowls.
going to get enough Super Bowls.
But
no
if
way.
he can win 2 more, then. But it's hard to make these comparisons because like Belichick's great, Andy Reid's great. Who's greater? I don't know. I mean, is it? It's not like they're squaring off in the ring to determine. It's like subjective, I guess. So they're both great coaches, obviously.
It's interesting, I guess, because my curiosity with it is just seeing how far the Patriots have fallen since Brady has not been with them. Like, there's been little glimmers here and there that maybe they're trying to get something together, but especially in the current AFC East, I don't see a path forward.
And one thing to me too,
that's coaching.
One thing to me too about Henry that sticks out, he's been very consistent. And I don't want to be, but you bring up a point with Belichick. I think some people kind of forget, like Don Shula, and I think a lot of it too was he probably just overstayed his welcome, like a lot of coaches at many levels kind of do.
Some bad teams.
Yeah, but I mean, he did not have great years there at the end, and
never won a Super Bowl with Marino.
Right. I mean, and stuff like that. I mean, Landry was kind of, for example, Tom Landry, right, a name we haven't brought up, kind of just, I wouldn't say unceremoniously ousted, but he didn't have great years there with Dallas in the towards the end-ish, I'll say. The guy like, say, Marty Schottenheimer, who's also, I'm just looking at like the top 10 win list, for example, right now. Marty Schottenheimer, who could always get you there, but never really get you over the hump,
The other thing is like, okay, so Andy Reid's now in the conversation for the greatest ever because he won the Super Bowl. I mean, a couple bounces of the ball or dumb plays either way in the Cincinnati game, and they're not even in the Super Bowl. And then, we're talking about that bad call. If they don't make that call, maybe they don't win the game. So it's just a very fine line between winning or losing. And, you could probably go to some years where Andy Reid didn't win, even when he was with the Eagles, and see some bad luck that went against him. So,
I'll say it. That's why I think the consistency, the 10 and 11 plus win seasons, combined with just being there almost every single, to be there as often as he has as a head coach in those AFC, NFC championship games. I think that's because the Super Bowl can often come down to a couple fluky kind of outcomes or calls or whatever the case may be.
I mean, the Falcons blowing a 28-3 lead and the Patriots got another ring. If they close that game out, they have 5 rings.
The undefeated Dolphins with Don Shula, they're a blocked field goal or blocked extra point away from not being undefeated the whole year.
Andy Reid has found himself in good situations as well, where not everybody's that fortunate to run into a young Patrick Mahomes, or to have those Eagles teams were pretty good, whether it was Ricky Waters or Donovan McNabb or who else was on those teams.
He got the end of Randall Cunningham, didn't he?
Yeah, he probably did. And Cunningham, where did Cunningham go to? I
know he was a Viking there.
Before he was an Eagle, he was a Viking, right? Or no? Yeah, well, either way, we're getting off on a tangent.
Yeah. To me, the best argument for Belichick coaching is the way he essentially was able to protect and make the most of Tom Brady in his early years.
Yeah.
When Tom Brady was not Tom Brady.
Right.
I know, but again, look at that. Same argument can be used against Belichick. The Tuck Rule game. Yeah. I mean, he got so lucky, someone got so lucky in some of those games, and coming back against the Falcons. What team can't close out, a 28-3 halftime lead in the Super Bowl? So there's 2 Super Bowls right there that just, one little thing happens different, and he doesn't win those. So that's why I think to say greatest ever, it's subjective. Why does there have to be a greatest ever?
One straight up answer for everybody. Head to head, Reid, Belichick. Who are you taking?
Well, who's their quarterback and what era?
Right now I'm taking Reid, but maybe 5 years ago I'd probably take Bill.
5.
Jeez, I don't know. It depends. So it depends on what team I have. Show me my roster and then let me pick my coach, and it would probably depend on the makeup of the roster. If it was more of a ball control type of offense with a bit of a running game, I'd probably go with Belichick. If it was more of a West Coast run and gun with a young quarterback like Mahomes, I'd probably go with Reid. I think a coach like Belichick could stifle a guy like Mahomes. Not stifle might be the bad word, but he would probably be less willing to rely on Mahomes to make great plays himself, and would more want to put him in positions where he wouldn't make mistakes and control the game. So I don't know. Do I like Andy Reid more than Belichick? I can't stand Belichick, but show me my roster first, and then I'll pick my coach.
All right,
Nate.
For me, I was thinking about it a little bit more as you guys were talking. It's difficult to compare the two. You have Belichick as a defensive coach, a defensive wizard, and then you have Andy Reid, who's an unbelievable play caller. So it's just on the offensive side. So it's difficult, but I would probably take Belichick in for 2 quick reasons. The defense he has had is just incredible. And for the fall off after Tom Brady, there really hasn't been that much of a fall off. They're still a winning team. They made the playoffs last year, just one game short of the playoffs this year. So not a terrible play. It's not like they're at the depths of the league. And the other way is Bill Belichick's always been the GM too. So you got to think about it that way. Bill Belichick he does not having a lot of help executively. He's doing this all himself.
He's a better cheater.
And that too. But he's been able to kind of get his players in and buy into the Patriot way, right? It's something that I think is really good systematically, or as an organization. I think Bill Belichick's done a really amazing job. with New England over the years.
Well, they won't win another Super Bowl. That's my prediction. I think Reid at least wins maybe one, maybe two. But I don't think Bill ever wins. I don't think Bill ever wins another Super Bowl.
Patriots were really crappy before Belichick came along too. They were like a laughingstock type of Tony Eason quarterbacked type of team.
Didn't Tony Eason lead them to the Super Bowl
Maybe.
1 year?
Yeah, the year
Against
that they got
85
killed by
Bears.
the Bears.
Yeah, the 85 Bears.
Yeah, maybe I should have said Drew Bledsoe. But while we're talking about coaches, before we got out of here, is Sean McDermott going to ever be able to? Is he the answer in Buffalo, or do the Bills need to look to upgrade?
I know. Will they ever get over the hump? That's the big question. I really don't know. I mean, it seems like, 3 years now and they've fallen short. I mean, I don't know what's going to change. I don't know. Everyone thinks the Super Bowl's coming, but I really don't know. Like, it's hard to say.
Changing your head coach isn't going to change the fact that right now what we saw out of Josh Allen this past season is not enough to get by the guy in Cincinnati or the guy out in Kansas City.
Roster moves need to be made. That is a thing.
I mean, I don't know why McDermott's taking the heat or why he would take the heat for something that's basically a personnel issue.
Well, there is things he does struggle with, some things like clock management at times. He burns a lot of timeouts for no reason. There's little things in the game that he could probably be better in, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but wait a second. They just showed that they could go toe-to-toe with a better iteration of the Kansas City Chiefs 2 years ago. Yeah. I mean, they literally went down to the
defense cost them that game, for
sure.
I still say it again. In the offseason, they got Von Miller. He was the final key in the cog to make them a Super Bowl contender, and then they lost him, and they were never the same. And then, their secondary was aging and battered, and in terms of like Poyer and then Hamlin, and
Micah Hyde was hurt for a while.
In his defense, I guess some of these key pieces weren't there when he needed them at the end of the season,
and they didn't have a legit number 2 wide receiver. Gabe Davis really didn't live up to being a number 2 this year. He kind of struggled, dropped a lot of balls, and when Diggs wasn't getting involved, they weren't really moving the ball up the field. So I think that's what they got to do. They got to go out and get a legit number 2 receiver and really try to fix that offense.
And you could also argue Dawson Knox isn't maybe not the answer at tight end when compared to some of the guys we've seen.
They backed up the brink truck for him though, so they believe in old Dawson. Oh,
and then
man.
They sometimes don't even use him enough. I don't get it.
Yeah, they definitely don't use their tight end the way that these other top teams lean on him, whether it's George Kittle or of course Travis Kelce or even
Goddard.
Hurst and Goddard. Yeah, Knox just seems like he's not in that level of quality. So there's Josh, okay. Let's say you put Sean McDermott and Josh Allen in Kansas City, and then you take Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes and put them in Buffalo. Does that Josh Allen-led Kansas City team win the Super Bowl this year with Sean McDermott as coach?
No.
Probably not.
No, because, I mean, and we talked about it how many times coming down the stretch. Josh Allen was not the same, and I'm pretty sure it was because of that arm. Yeah. He looked perfectly fine the first 5 weeks. Hurts his arm. It gets that awkward arm injury week 6, and he's just literally not the same the rest of the year. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, and Mahomes just has a better touch. And
mattered.
So does Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes in Buffalo with Buffalo's roster this year and the Von Miller injury, do they win a Super Bowl this year?
Yeah.
Nah, I don't think so. I don't think so. I do agree that Josh Allen wouldn't and McDermott wouldn't win one if they were in Kansas City, but I don't think that Reid and Mahomes in Buffalo this year, given this everything else being the same, I don't think that would have been enough.
Isn't this the Kansas City Chiefs offense that was allegedly the weakest out of any they've had in the last however many years that this has been going on?
Yeah, but they kind of were. They didn't score a lot. They struggled to get by Cincinnati, and they guess they did score in the Super Bowl against a really good Eagles defense. But yeah, no, I mean, without Tyreek Hill, you thought Kansas City is just not going to be as explosive. Tyreek Hill opens up so many more options, and then you see him come out and Andy Reid or Bieniemy, whoever figured it out, to run the jet motion and then cut back hard and get those wide open touchdowns. I mean, that was amazing to see. And if you look back to week 5, Jacksonville,
Oh yeah,
Philadelphia.
They figured
week
it out.
4, yeah.
Yeah, week 4 they pulled that out. So I don't know if they got that from watching that tape or whatever. But it's funny. You're going to see a lot of teams trying to do that next year, I think, and we'll see how defenses counter it. But it's fun talking about these things because who knows? But I do know that all these games were so close that to say, say one guy is better than the other because they won the game when so much could have just gone the other way. So it seems like some divine intervention maybe, decides these things.
The
So
history books won't remember how. They'll only remember who and what, and that's it. So that's it. That's all I got.
By the way, I lean Andy Reid, West Coast. It's my type of play
you,
style.
hey,
so.
USFL's coming up.
XFL first though. XFL first.
So
DC,
dumb. The
DC
USFL
Defenders.
Yeah, let's go
led by
DC
Eric
Defenders.
Dungy. Led by Eric Dungy.
No, I'm not watching any of them. Oh, the Dungeons on the Defenders?
Yeah.
All right, I'll watch them.
So,
They're my team.
Syracuse.
They're my XFL team.
Yeah, FingerLakes1.com is a DC Defenders.
Let's go.
Organization.